Hi everyone, welcome to the Clouds2Max version 1.1 build number 14 video. This is going to be talking about new features in Clouds2Max, and this is actually our second release of the software. The previous one had some basic functionality, and this one is still relatively simple to use, but we have added some additional tools based on some of the feedback we've had from our customers. So there's a whole number of little bug fixes and enhancements under the hood, and I'm not going to get into all of those because they're quite lengthy, but some of the major things I want to tackle, especially the editing and Limitbox new little enhancements that we've got in there. So the first thing I want to do is just go through basically walk through, starting from scratch. When somebody gets here, it seems to be a common question is, how do you launch the menu? So the first thing you do is when you're under the geometry tab, there's a drop-down list here. So standard primitives, that's the default, and what you'll want to do is just go to the drop-down list, go to Clouds2Max, click on point cloud, and then you'll click load, and you'll pick a file. Now you can do XYZ, you can do PTS, you can do E57, and I believe you can even do PTCB, but I almost always use PTS. It seems to be quite reliable. On occasion I'll use XYZ if I'm doing something from a photogrammetry based system that doesn't have intensity or is not set up for PTS. So you have a significant amount of options, and PTS is quite common between many of the scanning manufacturer software packages. So once you import a file, and I've got a room here, let me click on this here. I've got this imported here. Well, let me back up actually. If you're going to have a point cloud, all you have to do is load. Once you load your file, you select it, and what you're going to want to do is just click in the viewport someplace, and that will get it going. That'll get it started. Okay, so I've got this PTS file here that's loaded up, and if I just hold on here, let me go back. I'm going to select this in a second here. Okay, so this is selected. Go to the Modify tab. So you can see I got about 10 million points here. The parameters here I'm not going to talk about, but I'm just going to set this to 0.5 and point scaling to 0.5. That's just my default setting. I just like it that way. But one thing I will talk about when you're importing a file, skip each endpoint. So right now I have it set to 0, so I am importing the full point cloud at 10 million points. What I can do here is set this to a larger number, like 5 or 10, put a number here, and what it'll do is it'll decimate the point cloud by that many times. So the name is a little bit misleading when it says skip each endpoint, but if you put 5, it'll decimate it by about 5, not exactly. But in order for it to work, you have to reload here. So just hit reload, and you'll see that this will start refreshing the screen again and rebuilding the point cloud based on that. Now, we can also save here, so we can export. So originally in the previous version, we were only able to save as C2M. Okay, so this time around, you can now save as PTS. Okay, so you can bring in and you can bring out. Now we didn't need to actually save out before, because once you saved as C2M, we didn't have any editing features, but now we have some editing features where you can delete some points. So some people have requested the ability to export, what you have, your cleaned up point cloud. So anyway, what I'm going to do though is, this is PTS, but I am going to load up the C2M file here in just a second. Bedroom before, that's the one. So I'm going to load that up. It's nice when you convert it over. It loads up a lot faster. So I still have 10 million points, but it's a lot more fluid to work with. Okay, so we've got that in. I want to talk about the gizmo now very quickly. Again, no changes here to the previous version, but if you click on the hierarchy tab and go to Effect Pivot, you'll see right now, hold on a second if I can see it here, right there. So my pivot is way down at 0, 0, 0, but you can see the difference in height between the pivot and the actual point cloud. And that's because this particular scanner has an altimeter, and so it offsets the point cloud significantly. Well, I may not want that. I may not want the thing to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to center the my gizmo here to the point cloud just by hitting center to object, and I'll just leave it like that. And now when I focus in here, I've got my gizmo here. Now I can push that back down to the origin if I wanted. So if I go 0, 0, 0, and I'm going to zoom in. So now you can see down here I'm sort of down at the origin. Now it's not oriented in any particular fashion. You can see it's slightly slanted or rotated in the around the z-axis, but I'm going to leave it like that. There's some things I can show you based on that. Now what I want to talk about is the limit box and some changes that have happened there. So helpers tab, Okay, drop down, Clouds2Max, Limitbox. So when I click and drag, okay, you'll see that I start cutting off some things here. Now I'm going to adjust the Limitbox to be aligned or better aligned with the room. So I'm just going to be using the standard max keys W, E, and R. I'm just going to align it like that, and I'm going to resize it. Now, when you're going to resize or scale the limit box, right now I'm set to view. I'm going to use the local coordinate system. So I'm going to stretch this out a bit, and I'm going to do the same thing with the translate here. So now, if you use the view and it's not aligned, if your point cloud is not aligned, or sorry, if the limit box is not aligned, you'll actually skew the box. So you want to keep it square and not have to mess around like that with it. So I'm just going to go local, something like this, and now what I'm going to do, let me just go back here, and now my screen recording software is causing some issues with the rotator. It's a little bit of a lag, but normally it's very, very fluid. Okay, so I'm going to scale this down. You'll see that I've got the effect here of the limit box, and I'll push this down a bit more so you get the idea. Okay, with respect to the limit box, when you have it selected, you'll see here under the Modify tab I have two options: Evaluate if box is hidden and Invert clip points. So I'm just going to move the layers thing here, and if I invert it, you can see just toggle it on and off. You can invert it. I'll leave it like that. And the other thing is Evaluate if box is hidden. So what happens is if I don't have that checked and I hide the limit box, I lose the effect of the limit box. So effectively it just goes back to normal. However, if I click on the limit box, oh, you got the point cloud here. I need the limit box, evaluate if hidden, and then I hide it. Well, it keeps the effect, which is really good for animation. So you don't actually see the box when you're animating it. So keep that in mind. That's something that's new in this particular version. Okay, what else can we do? Well, let's talk about the Editbox now, because I think that's kind of important. So actually, I'm going to get rid of the limit box again. And I'm just going to click on it and delete it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build an Editbox. Okay, so same thing, back under the Helpers tab, there's Editbox. Now the Editbox is kind of interesting. Same thing, click and drag. And I'm going to adjust this in the view, like so. And I'm also in a local coordinate system. I'm going to go like this. Okay, and let's see if I can get this to rotate for me. All right. Now, one thing about the edit box, okay, whatever is selected in the limit box is going to be highlighted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to narrow this down, this selection down like that. Just make a small band. So there's some things that we can do here. Now I'm going to go to the Modify tab. Okay, so one thing I can do is I can create spline from selection. So what this will try to do is actually create a spline based on the selection I have. Now, I have enough points. I'm just going to make this very thin, and I'm going to move it a little bit higher. And I'll show you what we do here. So I'm going to hit Create Spline from Selection. Okay, and what it'll do is it will create a spline in here. And I'm going to see if I can select it. Yeah, I got it there, I think. And I'm going to lift it up, and I think you'll be able to see it there. So I've got this box shape now. So it's kind of useful if you're making a plan drawing. You can, just select the outline and then look at it from a top-down view. Let's see, if I hide the point cloud and the edit box, and you'll see that's the spline right there. So that can be a very, very useful tool. Now, it doesn't always work if there's like gaps in between the point cloud and such, but there are some things that you can do to play with this particular setting. I won't get into them too much. Let me close this up and let me go back to the box. I'll select it again. Now, let's say I move the box. So I'm going to move the edit box down a bit, something like, oops, I think I got the point cloud there. Let me get the box. Let me move the box down a bit, and I'll bring this up here. So now I've just moved it. So instead of erasing the current spline, I can just hit Update Spline. Okay, and what it'll do is it'll delete the old one for me and place a new spline around the edge of the box, and you can just almost see it right there. Okay, and that's pretty much the Create Spline tool. Now you can choose some differences in the density of the points on the spline using the minimum distance, and also if you have parts that bend away from the limit box a certain way, you can adjust which points it will use by changing this maximum angle. And like I said, I'm not going to get into it too much here, otherwise it'll be too long, but just check it out. The other useful thing about the edit box, and I'm going to expand the size here, is you can use it to delete. So right now you see this show points is selected. I'm going to deselect it. So what it does is it actually hides the points, okay, to give you a preview of what would be deleted okay, if you were to hit the delete button down at the bottom here. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to delete these points. But what I may want to do, if I go from a side view, you can see that on this window here, right about there, I'm going to get rid of this grid because it's just messing me up. Right about there, I've got this all the noise that's coming from the window here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Editbox, I'm going to move it. Let me see, like there. I'm going to rescale it like this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get the noise that's on this part here, like that, something like that. Okay, so now I've got all this stuff highlighted. If I select or if I delete that, all this, hit delete points, it just wipes them out. Okay. Now this brings up an interesting point. This would be one reason why you might want to resave the point cloud. Now this is about the extent of the deletion that we can do, so you can't do different selections like polygon selection and stuff. You have to do everything inside a box right now. It still can be useful. If you try to clean up your point cloud someplace else, you bring it to Clouds2Max and then you delete it with the tools that we have. So this is where you could go back now. You could hit save, and then you could just go back and save it as PTS. Okay. Now, whenever you make an edit to a C2M point cloud, what you should do is go to the bottom, and here it says rebuild normals plus sizes. The reason is that it keeps the original number of points in here. So if you want to update the points and rebuild the normals, anytime you do an editing function on the point cloud, just go down when you're done and hit the rebuild normals, and your display up here will all be updated. Okay, so that's the edit box. I've shown you the create spline. I've shown you how to delete points, rebuilding normals. We talked about exporting to PTS. I'll very briefly talk about some of the rendering options we have. So I'll go down here. So this was asked for before, and we had to do this in another way, but now it's built right in. So intensity ramp. If I click on intensity, you'll see that we have a sort of a default view here of intensity, but you can keep clicking it for different types of intensity displays, different color palettes, let's say. So you just cycle through them by hitting them 3 or 4 times. We also have height ramp. So so long as this is oriented properly in the z-axis, you can see that here, if I go like that, and same thing with height ramp, you can cycle through a few different options, like so. Okay, there's another one here called dot 3 lighting, and there's also normals. Okay, so you get a display of the position of all the normals in the room. So some different rendering options for you to look at. There is also, if I go down here, I believe the load unload VRAM. If I do that, if I unload all the RAM, you'll see the point cloud disappears. When I click it again, it pops back in. Okay, so it's kind of like a refresh almost. But you normally wouldn't have to use that, but if your point cloud is getting funny, you could try to load and unload your RAM to ease things up a bit, and while still working with a lot of geometry. Toggle viewport text, that was there before. If you click this and look up here in the top left, I'll just refresh the window, you'll see it disappears. The menus are actually still there, so you can still click them, but in order to get them to disappear, you have to refresh the window. Now what I do is I just use Alt-W, and it just goes from the quad view to the single view. Now if I want it back, just hit toggle again, and it pops right back up without having to refresh. It's only when you want it to disappear. Okay, 3D point filtering. So this helps with rendering, and there's some different options here between colors, normals, point size, and intensity. This can help soften the color of the point cloud, and you can experiment with this. We also have point cloud removal, so redundant points, so small, medium, large. And I should say that this is all based on the average the standard deviation of the points. So if the points are already spread out far apart, it looks at the standard deviation, and it will select small, medium, large are based on that. So they're kind of arbitrary, but they are based on the actual point cloud. And same thing with remove large outliers. It looks at the standard deviation of the how close the points are to one another, and then you can do some filtering to do that. Whenever you do the filtering here, please, once you're done, just hit rebuild normals, and that will update the point cloud up here, and it will give you an idea of how many points were in fact removed. So that is pretty much it in a nutshell, and look for some other videos here. I'll go through some of these other options in greater detail, like the parameters and rendering and such. There's also I should mention this, for those of you that are using Clouds2Max for network rendering. Before you had to have several licenses of Clouds2Max. What we've done now is we have just a net render version, so it's C Clouds2Max NR is what we're calling it. And if you install those, they're a lot cheaper to buy, and you just install them on a node. It's a node license, and basically you're able to render these out on as many machines as you like. The beta is available if you're looking to test this, and as I said before, if you are a current customer, you're more than willing to update, and it's available to you at no charge. Thanks a lot, and hope you enjoy it.